Welcome to our video blog. You've seen the outline of the 5 ways. There's 5 key drivers that contribute to profitability. So what we're going to do now is dive into some of the specific strategies on how to get those increases. And the first area we're going to look at is conversion rate. Typically the area where we get most of our quick wins. Not always, but generally speaking that's the case. I'm going to walk you through a 9-step process for creating a sales process. Having a sales pathway or sales process in place is one of the key strategies that we use to get some wins around conversion rate. So I'm going to give you a 9-step process to create that. I'm going to go through it relatively quickly for the interest of time. So if there is some detail you'd like, or some more detail you'd like, feel free to email me at jamiecunningham@actioncoach.com. Alright, so 9 steps to create your sales process. Well, step 1 is to measure your current conversion rate. Alright, if your conversion rate is already at 90%, then you don't need to do a whole lot differently. You probably don't need to go through this process. But if your conversion rate is at 15 or 20%, then you've got a lot of room for improvement, so this is definitely a worthwhile exercise. The other caveat I'll put in place in step 1, or in going through these 9 steps, is the sophistication or complexity of your sales process is going to be relative to the size of the sale that you're trying to make. If you're selling something for $2, you don't need a very sophisticated sales process or a very complicated one. If you're selling something for $2 million, you need a fair bit of structure around your sales process, because there's going to be some things you're going to have to overcome from the prospect's point of view. Alright, so stage 1 I mentioned is to measure your current conversion rate. And assuming there is room for improvement, step 2 is to outline what you're currently doing. So write it down, whether it's in bullet point form or you can write it down sort of in a flow chart. A flow chart, so it looks like, you know, you've got this action you take and then this happens, then this happens. And it's a great way to sort of outline and visually display the process. And step 3 is to jot down, this is a really important stage, to write down what are the key or the most important perceived emotional risks from your prospect's point of view. So these are the things that are stopping people from buying from you. Now this is important to put yourself in your customer's point or your prospect's shoes and understand, okay, if they're buying from you, what are some of the things that are going to be going on inside their head that might make them reluctant to buy from you. Alright, you want to dive into the emotional level there. Now, a great way there is to contact some existing customers, particularly new ones who you have a good relationship with, and ask them what were some of their concerns when buying from you. Alright, but you need to understand that in order to effectively put a sales process in place. Alright, step 4 is going to be looking at your current process that you've already mapped out, and how does that address those perceived risks that you've identified. Look for some gaps there in your current process. If you can identify where you're currently losing people, where they're falling out of the process, that might highlight one of the areas that you're missing the gap on identify or addressing some of those key perceived risks. Step 5 is to now sort of map out how your sales process should look. Okay, sort of take the ideal world and take a flowchart approach to looking at, okay, how should it work to make sure we address each of those perceived risks. You want to take into account how you build rapport with your prospects, how you build credibility, how you position how the sales process is going to go, at what stage you're going to ask questions, and what type of questions you're going to ask, and right through to the agreement point, agreement on making a sale or the sale being made, closing the sale if you like, right through to post-sale follow-up, to overcome post-sale reluctance when someone changes their mind. So you want to have all those things in place. And again, depending on the complexity of what you're selling, is going to depend on how complicated that needs to look. Step 6 is going to be to take what you've drafted out there and document it effectively. Where are you going to need some scripts in place? Where do you need supporting documents or checklists? So you can then, in step 7, train the team. Okay, step 6 is document, step 7 is train the team. Bring everyone on board and bring them up to speed with what you've done, get their input and make sure you're all in agreement that this is worth trying. So then step 8 is to execute and review the numbers. Ideally, you want to be measuring your conversion rate at each of these stages. Right? If you say you've got 5 or 6 steps in your sales process, you want to know what your conversion rate is at each stage, because 1 or 2 of those stages will have a greater drop-off than other stages. and that's the area that you need to work on. Your sales process is a living document or a living process. You're always refining and changing it to get gradual increases. But the key is work from a benchmark or a foundation you've agreed on and be measuring it so you're making informed decisions. Step 9 is to dashboard it. Dashboard is sort of a topic of another whole topic, but it's where you want to have these key numbers or the numbers that are relevant to measure so you know what's going on one page, and it's something you measure ideally on a weekly basis. Again, this might vary a little bit depending on your product or service, but so you're looking at the numbers regularly and you're looking at individuals' numbers. If you've got a sales team, then you want to be looking at each individual's numbers so you can give them individual mentoring and coaching and see how they stack up against the others, and as well you also then want to have the consolidated or combined numbers so you can see how the company's doing as a whole. But that's the key thing, is make sure you're measuring it, make sure you've got a clearly outlined sales process, make sure you're reviewing it regularly and training the team effectively. So there's a fair bit of work involved there, but again, if you want some further clarification, feel free to email me at jamiecunningham@actioncoach.com. Have a great day.